So recently I made a video about some stats that I gathered while I was applying to software engineering jobs earlier in 2024. And so I wanted to make a follow-up video to that, which goes over the exact process that I used to apply to over 200 positions in a 2-month window. If you are in the software engineer job market or have gone through that process at some point, you know that it can be really grueling, and so I wanted to take some of the learning from earlier this year when I was applying to jobs. And honestly, I've applied to about 1,000 jobs, software engineering jobs, over the past 4 to 5 years. So I've definitely done some things to hone my process over that time, and I'd love to share that with y'all. In terms of things that we will cover over this video, I want to talk about just some search criteria that you should have and formulate on your own before you start applying for jobs. I'm going to talk about the platforms that you should apply on. Also, just some brief resume tips to make sure you have the best chance at getting interviews from all these applications. Then we'll talk about the specific strategy on the platform that I recommend. And finally, end with some preparation that you can do while you're applying for jobs to get you ready for once you're interviewing. So let's kick things off by just talking about having some kind of search criteria or things that are important to you in a job description before you even start applying. So definitely some things to consider are you looking for a remote job? Are you looking for an in-person or hybrid job? What is your salary band? Companies are increasingly starting to put their salaries on job descriptions, which is really nice. Not all of them do, but the ones that do, you are able to see that, which is nice. For software engineering jobs in particular, what kind of development are you interested? Is there a specific tech stack that you have most experience in? Or are you okay branching out into other technologies, other disciplines? So for example, for myself, when I was applying, I was mostly applying for back-end jobs and full stack as well. But thinking through all of these things can help you narrow down on the types of jobs that you're looking for and ultimately save you time throughout the application process. I don't want to do a huge deep dive on resumes. I think that could be a whole nother video in and of itself. But the main tip that I want to give for resumes is this concept of an action followed up by some kind of impact. So if you would look at my resume, I have 2 separate jobs that are listed out on there, and each of those jobs has about 5 bullet points underneath them. And each of them is a strong action word followed up by some type of impact that it caused, whether that's some kind of efficiency that was gained for our team or some other team, or if it generated some kind of revenue for the company. I also wanted to highlight that as well. So just a quick example of what this might look like is maybe you were in charge of leading a project that delivered a huge impact for your team and for your company. That bullet point can be led the development of X project, which took X amount of time and generated X amount of dollars for the business. It's really important to have these action words followed up by the impact they caused. Recruiters are really just skimming through these, so if they can see that you were able to create some kind of impact for your team in your last company, that's going to be a really positive signal for them. And because they're just skimming them, make sure you keep these as concise as possible so they don't have to do too much reading, because they won't spend much time on your resume. You can guarantee that. Okay, now that we are at the point where we've kind of narrowed down the specific jobs that we're trying to apply for, we have some specific criteria that we're looking for, and we've made sure that our resume is as rock solid as possible, we're now able to start actually applying for jobs. And when it comes to the platforms I recommend applying on, really there's 2 that jump out. It's LinkedIn and it's Indeed. When I was going through my last round of applications, I sent out just shy of 250 applications. I started off by applying on Indeed and LinkedIn. I ended up getting 15 interviews from all of those applications, and only 1 of those interviews came from Indeed. So do what you will with that information, but by the end of my job search process, I was almost exclusively applying on LinkedIn, and I'd kind of given up on Indeed. There are some additional things that you can do to strengthen the efficiency of your applications on LinkedIn, though. I don't think you should just go straight to LinkedIn, type in software engineer jobs, and expect that you're going to have a ton of success doing it that way. So this is why I want to jump into my exact LinkedIn application strategy and all the things that I've done to make this process more efficient over the past couple of years. So let's hop into my computer and I'll demonstrate it. Alrighty, so we're on LinkedIn and we're in the jobs page. And what we want to do is we want to take the search criteria that we had from that first step and throw that into the title that we're searching for. So for example, for me, like I said, I was searching for a lot of back-end engineering jobs, and I was also looking for remote jobs, so I will do that. Now, the main problem with just doing these 2 things is just searching for back-end software engineer in the United States remote is we're going to get a ton of promoted listings, and pretty much all of these jobs are over 100 applicants, maybe posted a month ago, it's definitely not in our best interest to apply to these jobs because everybody is seeing them and everybody's applying to them. And most likely your application is going to get lost in a sea of applications. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are applying to the jobs that have been posted most recently. And so obviously for this, we can go to the filters. We can go to most recent for this. And we're going to get a nice list sorted by the most recent, which is great. For the most part, we do want to avoid the easy applies. I would say if you have something that's posted like 7 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, it's definitely still worth it to do it. It takes like 15 seconds, so you might as well. But for the amount of easy applies that I applied to get interviews off of that, was not very high. The second part of this strategy, which really saved me the most amount of time, is setting up some filters so we can get rid of the job listings that are either promoted, like I was talking about before, or from these recruitment agencies. So if you scroll down here, we're going to get like pages and pages of listings from companies like Dice and some other recruitment agencies. And I've never had any success with postings from any recruitment agencies. I think a lot of them are scams. I think they're just trying to get your information. And we'll want to filter these out because we have no intention of applying to these jobs. So the way that I do this is with a Chrome extension called uBlock. So just go ahead and make sure that you grab that from the Chrome store. And what you can do is you can set up these filters to make sure that certain elements on a web page do not appear. So for example, if we're on LinkedIn.com and there is on the HTML of the LinkedIn website, they have all their listings in an li tag, and that if that tag has a text of promoted, it's going to get rid of it. So we simply do the same thing for all of these recruitment agencies too. So I have a list of a handful that I'll put in the listing description down below, so you can just copy and paste that into your uBlock filters. But as you come across new ones, definitely just add them to this filter list because it's going to make it a lot easier to apply to jobs. So now if we go back over to LinkedIn and we turn on our filters and then reload the page, we'll see that we no longer get those listings from Dice. They've all been filtered out, and now we can go about our job search a lot more efficiently. The last part of this process to make it even more efficient and time-worthy for you as possible is you want to apply at set periods throughout the day, every day. When I was laid off, I had a lot of time throughout the day, so I was able to do this process 3 times throughout the day. So right when I woke up, I was going through and applying to all the jobs at 8 a.m. So this would catch anything that either came in maybe after work hours from the previous day, or if there was like some weird time zone difference, then I would be able to get those jobs and I'd be the first one. I would do the same thing around noon, around lunchtime, and then I would also do it at the end of the day, around 4 to 5 p.m. as well. And the reason for applying in big chunks throughout the day is to make sure that my application was almost always on top. So I was almost always applying to new jobs that came out within like the first hour of them being posted. And I really do think that this helped me land the 15 interviews that I did. Remember, there is a lot of competition, but if you are able to position yourself with a nice resume that is in line with job description and you're able to be on the top of the stack of applications that come through, you are still able to get a good amount of interviews in 2024. There are 2 last things that I want to touch on before I wrap up this video. The first is whether or not referrals are doing anything right now. And I don't have a ton of data to speak on this, but I had about 4 to 5 referrals from people that I actually knew and had worked with previously. And so I think these were like strong referrals that I was also qualified for. And I never heard anything back from any of those referrals. So I think if there are people in your network who you are comfortable reaching out with, it's probably worth getting the referrals. But I wouldn't really go out of your way to be like cold messaging people from companies that you don't really know these people. I don't think it's the best use of your time. The final piece of all of this is now you've applied to a bunch of jobs. How do you make sure that you stay prepared throughout your application process so that whenever you do get interviews, you are prepared to do well on them? And I did touch on this a bit in my last video, but unfortunately, a lot of companies are still asking leak code style questions. So I definitely think it's worth it to unfortunately still do leak code problems, at least being comfortable with the type of questions that are being asked and understanding the different algorithms that are associated with them. There has also been, though, a nice shift in different types of questions being asked, which are kind of in the same vein, but are more like data structure algorithm in a business context kind of question. These will normally be multi-part questions that start with a simple use case, and you'll have to design like a data structure or a function that'll do a certain thing, and then they'll build on it in a next step and then build on it in a third step. These kind of questions are really nice, but they're harder to prepare for because they could really be about anything. So just having a strong understanding of data structures and how to use them in your programming language of choice is probably going to be your best bet for preparing. That will wrap up all the steps that I have though for my entire job application process. If you are currently going through the software engineer gauntlet of applications and interviews, I apologize because it honestly is the worst and it's very stressful. So I hope that these tips will hopefully get you out of that as soon as possible. If you've got any more tips on job application processes and things that make it more efficient, definitely leave them down in the comments. Help out your fellow software engineers, and I'd definitely love to learn from other folks as well. If you haven't already, definitely like the video and subscribe. I talk about building SaaS products, I talk about software engineering topics, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. Thanks again though for watching all the way through, and I hope to see you soon. Have a good one.